Today, I'd like to share with you the story of Amelia Vance, a woman who, after a devastating loss, made a silent promise to herself that she would never love again. She built a life of quiet solitude in the charming city of Charleston, believing her heart was forever closed to the kind of intense passion that had once defined her. But destiny, as it often does, had other plans. What happened when a quiet, strong man named Ethan Hayes moved in next door and slowly, gently, began to dismantle the walls Amelia had so carefully constructed around her heart is a story about the profound courage it takes to love again after unimaginable loss. It's about discovering that passion doesn't diminish with age or grief, but can reawaken with an intensity that is both terrifying and utterly breathtaking. I invite you to subscribe to our channel, and please share in the comments where you're listening from today. I love knowing where our stories travel. Amelia Vance was 48 years old when she made a silent promise to herself, a vow whispered into the quiet of her empty Charleston home, that she would never love again. It wasn't a dramatic declaration, not born of bitterness or anger, but of a profound, bone-deep weariness. She had loved once, with an intensity that had consumed her entirely, a love that had felt like the very air she breathed, the ground beneath her feet. And when that love had been ripped away by a sudden, senseless accident 10 years prior, it had taken with it not just her husband David, but a part of her soul she believed was irreplaceable. David had been the kind of man who filled every room he entered, vibrant and full of life, his laughter infectious, his presence a constant source of warmth and joy. Their love had been a whirlwind from the moment they met in college, a passionate, all-consuming fire that had burned brightly through their 20s and 30s. They had built a life together in Charleston, a charming historic home with a sprawling garden, a life filled with shared dreams and unspoken understandings. His death had left a void so vast, so cold, that Amelia had felt herself shatter into a million pieces, convinced she could never be whole again. The years that followed had been a slow, arduous process of reassembling herself, not into the person she had been, but into a new, quieter version. She had poured her energy into her work as a landscape architect, finding solace in the methodical beauty of design, in coaxing life from the earth. Her garden, once a shared passion with David, became her sanctuary, a place where she could lose herself in the vibrant colors and fragrant blooms, a living testament to resilience. She had friends, of course, kind and supportive women who understood her grief, but she kept them at a comfortable distance, never allowing anyone too close to the raw, still tender places in her heart. Her promise to never love again wasn't a rejection of happiness, but a form of self-preservation. She simply couldn't bear the thought of experiencing that kind of loss, that kind of pain, ever again. The intensity of her love for David had been both her greatest joy and her deepest wound, and she had decided that a life of quiet contentment, free from the terrifying vulnerability of profound attachment, was the safest path forward. She had built walls around her heart, carefully constructed brick by brick, believing them to be impenetrable. Charleston, with its cobblestone streets, gas lamps, and historic homes, was a city that breathed romance and nostalgia, a constant, gentle reminder of the love she had shared. Yet, Amelia had learned to navigate its beauty without succumbing to its sentimental pull. She walked its charming alleys, admired its secret gardens, and watched couples stroll hand in hand, all without a flicker of longing. Or so she told herself. The truth was, a deep, almost imperceptible ache resided within her, a ghost limb of a heart that still remembered what it felt like to be utterly, gloriously consumed. One crisp autumn morning, as the air carried the scent of salt and blooming jasmine, Amelia found herself sketching in her garden, lost in the intricate patterns of light and shadow. She was designing a new rose bed, a complex arrangement of heirloom varieties, when a shadow fell across her drawing. She looked up, startled, to find a man standing at her garden gate, his presence unexpected, his gaze both curious and respectful. He was tall, with a lean build that suggested an active life, and hair that was mostly silver, though traces of dark brown remained at the temples. His eyes, a striking shade of blue, held a depth that spoke of experience, of stories untold. He wore simple, well-worn clothes, jeans and a faded denim shirt that seemed to fit him with an effortless grace. He introduced himself as Ethan Hayes, a new neighbor who had recently moved into the historic house next door, the one that had stood empty for years. He apologized for intruding, explaining that he had simply been captivated by the beauty of her garden, a rare gem in a city known for its horticultural splendor. Amelia, usually reserved with strangers, found herself responding with an ease that surprised her. Ethan spoke with a quiet charm, his voice a low rumble that was both soothing and intriguing. He asked about her roses, about the history of her home, about the challenges of gardening in Charleston's unique climate. He seemed genuinely interested, his questions thoughtful, his attention unwavering. There was no hint of flirtation, no attempt to push past her carefully constructed boundaries, just a simple, authentic curiosity that felt disarmingly gentle. They talked for nearly an hour, leaning against the wrought iron gate, the morning sun warming their faces. Amelia found herself sharing details about her life she hadn't spoken aloud in years. The joy she found in her work, the solace of her garden, the quiet rhythm of her days. Ethan, in turn, spoke of his own life, of a career as a marine biologist that had taken him all over the world, of a recent decision to settle down in Charleston, drawn by its history and its proximity to the ocean he loved. He was divorced, he mentioned casually, a long time ago, a quiet ending to a relationship that had simply run its course. When he finally excused himself, citing unpacking duties, Amelia felt a strange sense of lightness, a subtle shift in the air around her. She watched him walk away, his stride confident and unhurried, and a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years stirred within her. Not longing, not desire, but a faint echo of curiosity, a whisper of interest that she quickly suppressed. She returned to her sketching, telling herself it was merely the pleasantness of a new neighbor, nothing more. But the quiet rhythm of her days had been subtly disrupted. She found herself glancing toward the gate more often, listening for sounds from next door, a faint awareness of his presence permeating her carefully cultivated solitude. She told herself it was natural, simply the adjustment to having a new neighbor after years of quiet. But a part of her, a part she had long silenced, knew it was more than that. The next few weeks brought more chance encounters. A wave across their gardens, a brief conversation on the sidewalk, a shared moment admiring the sunset from their respective porches. Ethan was consistently kind, respectful, and genuinely engaging. He never pressed, never pushed, simply offered his presence, his quiet attention, his easy smile. And slowly, imperceptibly, the walls Amelia had built around her heart began to soften, not crumble, but soften at the edges, allowing in a sliver of light she hadn't realized she was missing. One afternoon, as a sudden autumn storm swept through Charleston, bringing with it a deluge of rain and fierce winds, a large branch from an old oak tree in Amelia's garden snapped, crashing down onto her fence. She stood at her window, watching the chaos, feeling a familiar pang of helplessness, a reminder of all the things she had to face alone now. But then, through the driving rain, she saw Ethan, already outside, assessing the damage, his face grim but determined. He didn't ask if she needed help. He simply started working, clearing smaller debris, his movements efficient and strong. Amelia, wrapped in a raincoat, joined him, and together, in the pouring rain, they began the arduous task of clearing the fallen branch. There was a quiet camaraderie in their shared effort, a sense of partnership that felt both foreign and deeply comforting. His presence, his strength, his unspoken understanding, created a warmth within her that chased away the chill of the rain and the chill of her long-held solitude. As dusk fell, and the rain finally subsided, the branch was cleared, the fence temporarily mended. They stood together, soaked and tired, but with a shared sense of accomplishment. Ethan looked at her, his blue eyes holding a warmth that went beyond neighborly kindness, a look that seemed to see past her carefully constructed composure, straight into the part of her that was still vulnerable, still aching. And in that moment, Amelia felt a tremor of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a decade. A spark of connection, a whisper of possibility, a terrifying awareness that her promise to herself might be harder to keep than she had ever imagined. She thanked him, her voice a little rough with emotion, and he simply smiled, a genuine, easy smile that reached his eyes. He didn't touch her, didn't make any grand gestures, just stood there, his presence a quiet anchor in the fading light. And as she watched him walk back to his own house, Amelia knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified her, that her carefully constructed world of solitude had just been irrevocably altered. The walls around her heart, once so solid, now felt permeable, vulnerable to the quiet, persistent charm of the man next door. And for the first time in 10 years, the thought of what might come next, of what destiny might have in store, filled her not with dread, but with a strange, unsettling flicker of anticipation. The incident with the fallen oak branch became a quiet turning point, a moment when the carefully maintained distance between Amelia and Ethan began to dissolve, replaced by an unspoken understanding, a subtle shift in the landscape of their neighboring lives. Ethan continued his gentle, unobtrusive presence, often appearing at her garden gate with a question about a plant, a recommendation for a local nursery, or simply to admire the morning light on her camellias. Amelia, in turn, found herself seeking him out, drawn by a curiosity she hadn't felt in years, a desire for connection that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Their conversations deepened, moving beyond gardening and local history to more personal territories. Ethan spoke of his years at sea, the vastness of the ocean, the quiet solitude of scientific research, the profound beauty he found in the intricate ecosystems beneath the waves. He spoke of his divorce with a quiet dignity, not bitterness, but a recognition that some paths simply diverged, that love could fade without malice. Amelia, in turn, found herself sharing fragments of her life with David, not the raw grief she had once guarded so fiercely, but the warmth of shared memories, the joy of a love that had once been everything. She spoke of her work, her passion for design, the way she found solace in shaping the earth, in creating beauty that endured. Charleston, with its ancient live oaks draped in Spanish moss and its vibrant, fragrant gardens, became the backdrop for their unfolding connection. They walked its historic streets together, not as a couple, but as two individuals sharing a quiet companionship, their footsteps echoing on cobblestones, their shoulders occasionally brushing in a contact that sent a subtle tremor through Amelia. They visited art galleries, discussed literature, shared meals at quaint local eateries, always maintaining a delicate balance between friendship and something more, a tension that hummed beneath the surface of their polite interactions. Amelia felt herself changing, subtly but profoundly. The walls around her heart, once so solid, now felt porous, permeable to Ethan's quiet kindness, his unwavering attention, his way of looking at her that seemed to see past her composure, straight into the longing she had buried so deep. She found herself anticipating his calls, his visits, the casual encounters that brightened her days. Her garden, once a sanctuary of solitude, now felt incomplete without his presence, his thoughtful observations, his shared appreciation for its beauty. The promise she had made to herself, the vow to never love again, began to feel less like a shield and more like a cage. She remembered the fierce, consuming passion she had shared with David, the way his touch had ignited every nerve ending, the way his presence had made her feel utterly, gloriously alive. And for the first time in a decade, she found herself wondering if that kind of intensity was truly gone from her life, or if it had simply been dormant, waiting for the right person to awaken it. Ethan never pushed, never rushed. He simply existed, a steady, comforting presence next door, his patience a testament to a deep understanding of her unspoken reservations. He seemed to sense her fear, her hesitation, the delicate balance she was trying to maintain between connection and self-preservation. His blue eyes held a quiet wisdom, a gentle invitation to explore what was building between them, without pressure, without expectation. One evening, as a sudden, unseasonal chill swept through Charleston, bringing with it a thick fog that clung to the gas lamps and shrouded the historic homes in an ethereal glow. Ethan invited Amelia to his house for a cup of tea. She hesitated, the intimacy of the invitation a stark contrast to their usual public encounters. But the chill in the air, the quiet allure of the fog, and a burgeoning curiosity she could no longer deny, drew her across the short distance between their homes. His house was warm and inviting, filled with books and art, a comfortable blend of old-world charm and modern simplicity. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere of cozy intimacy. They sat on a plush sofa, mugs of steaming tea warming their hands, and the conversation flowed with an ease that felt both familiar and profoundly new. They spoke of dreams, of regrets, of the strange paths life took, of the unexpected turns that led to new beginnings. Ethan spoke of his travels, of remote islands and vibrant coral reefs, of the quiet majesty of the deep ocean. He spoke of moments of profound beauty and profound loneliness, of the lessons learned from a life lived largely in solitude. Amelia, in turn, found herself sharing the raw, unvarnished truth of her grief for David, the decade of quiet mourning, the fear that she had lost her capacity for intense love, for that all-consuming passion that had once defined her. She spoke of her promise, the vow whispered in silence, the shield she had built around her heart. Ethan listened with an unwavering gaze, his blue eyes holding a depth of understanding that made Amelia feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. He didn't offer platitudes or easy answers. He simply listened, his presence a quiet anchor in the swirling currents of her unspoken fears. And as she spoke, as she laid bare the most vulnerable parts of her soul, Amelia felt a profound shift within her, a loosening of the tight knot of grief and fear that had resided in her chest for so long. When the fire had dwindled to embers and the fog outside had begun to lift, Ethan reached for her hand, his fingers gently intertwining with hers. His touch was warm, comforting, yet it sent a jolt of electricity through Amelia, a sensation she hadn't felt in a decade, a physical awakening that startled her with its intensity. He didn't speak, didn't press, simply held her hand, his thumb gently stroking her skin, an unspoken language of longing passing between them. Amelia looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not just a kind neighbor, but a man whose eyes held a depth of wisdom and compassion, a man whose quiet strength had somehow, imperceptibly, begun to dismantle the walls around her heart. She saw a man who understood her pain, who respected her past, but who also saw the possibility of a future that might hold the very passion she had sworn off. She leaned into his touch, allowing herself to feel the warmth, the connection, the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of what was unfolding between them. Her promise, once so firm, now felt fragile, a relic of a past self who had believed that safety was preferable to joy, that avoiding pain was worth sacrificing love. But sitting there, in the quiet intimacy of Ethan's home, with his hand in hers, Amelia knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified her, that destiny, indeed, had other plans. The night ended with a gentle goodbye at her door, a lingering touch of hands, a shared gaze that held a universe of unspoken emotions. Amelia walked back into her quiet home, but it no longer felt empty. It felt filled with the echo of Ethan's presence, the warmth of his touch, the tantalizing whisper of a future she had never dared to imagine. The promise she had made in silence, the vow to never love again, now felt like a challenge, a barrier waiting to be breached by a love that was proving to be as intense and as overwhelming as the one she had lost. And for the first time in 10 years, Amelia felt a profound, exhilarating fear, the fear of falling in love again, a fear that was strangely intertwined with the most vibrant sense of being alive she had experienced in a very long time. The weeks that followed the intimate evening at Ethan's house were a delicate dance between burgeoning desire and Amelia's deeply ingrained fear. Her promise to herself, once a fortress, now felt like a crumbling wall, besieged by the quiet strength of Ethan's presence and the undeniable pull she felt toward him. Every touch, every lingering gaze, every shared laugh chipped away at her resolve, revealing the raw, vulnerable heart she had so carefully protected for a decade. Their connection deepened with an intensity that startled Amelia. It wasn't just companionship. It was a profound resonance, a feeling of being utterly understood without the need for words. Ethan seemed to read her unspoken thoughts, to anticipate her moods, to offer comfort or challenge exactly when she needed it. He brought a quiet joy into her life, a lightness that chased away the shadows of her past, making her laugh with a freedom she hadn't known since David. The physical intimacy, when it finally came, was a revelation. It began with hesitant touches, hands brushing, fingers intertwining, a slow, tender exploration of boundaries. Then, one evening, after a long day spent exploring the barrier islands off Charleston, the salt air clinging to their skin and the sunset painting the sky in hues of fire, they found themselves back at Amelia's house. The air was thick with unspoken longing, a tension that had been building between them for weeks. Ethan's kiss was gentle at first, a question more than a demand, his lips soft against hers, tasting of salt and wine, and a promise of something profound. But as Amelia responded, as her body remembered a language it had long forgotten, the kiss deepened, becoming urgent, consuming, a fiery declaration of a passion she had sworn was dead. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer, and her own hands instinctively reached for his hair, tangling in the silver strands, holding on as if to anchor herself against the overwhelming tide of emotion. They made love that night in Amelia's bedroom, a room that had been a sanctuary of solitude for 10 years, now transformed by the presence of another. It was nothing like she had imagined, nothing like the hesitant, awkward encounters she had braced herself for. It was raw, tender, desperate, and utterly beautiful. Ethan touched her with a reverence that brought tears to her eyes, his body a warm, strong presence against hers, awakening nerve endings that had been dormant for a decade. He moved with a quiet confidence, his desire for her palpable, his attention unwavering, making her feel seen, cherished, and utterly desired in ways that transcended age or past wounds. Amelia's body, once a vessel of grief and quiet resignation, responded with an intensity that shocked her. It was as if every unexpressed longing, every buried desire, every suppressed passion had been waiting for this moment, for this man, to burst forth with an almost primal force. She cried out, not in pain, but in a release of emotion so profound it felt like a rebirth, a shedding of the old self, a reclaiming of a vitality she had thought was lost forever. The passion was overwhelming, a fire that consumed her entirely, leaving her breathless and shaking, utterly undone. Afterward, lying tangled in the sheets, the scent of their bodies mingling with the faint aroma of jasmine from the garden, Amelia felt a profound sense of both peace and terror. The promise she had made to herself, the vow to never love again, had been irrevocably broken. And in its place, a new, terrifying vulnerability had emerged. She was in love with Ethan, deeply, intensely, passionately in love, and the realization was both exhilarating and utterly terrifying. She confessed her fears to him in the quiet aftermath, whispering about David, about the depth of her grief, about the promise she had made, the terror of experiencing such loss again. Ethan listened, his arms holding her close, his presence a steady anchor in her emotional storm. He didn't try to diminish her past or her pain. He simply held her, his touch a silent promise of understanding, of patience, of a love that was willing to navigate her fears. He told her, without words, that he would not replace David, but that he would stand beside her, a new chapter, a new love, equally profound but different. A love that honored her past while embracing their future. The world outside their Charleston bubble began to notice. Friends, who had long grown accustomed to Amelia's solitary existence, expressed surprise, then cautious happiness, then genuine delight at seeing her so alive, so vibrant. Her closest friend, Sarah, a woman who had walked through the darkest days of Amelia's grief, looked at her with knowing eyes, a silent acknowledgement that this was what Amelia had deserved all along. But not everyone was as accepting. David's family, particularly his sister, who had always held a protective, almost possessive affection for Amelia, expressed thinly veiled disapproval. There were comments about moving on too quickly, about disrespecting David's memory, about the impropriety of a woman her age finding such intense, visible happiness. Amelia felt a familiar pang of guilt, a ghost of the person she used to be, always seeking approval, always trying to please. But then she looked at Ethan, at the quiet strength in his eyes, at the unwavering support he offered, and the guilt faded, replaced by a fierce resolve. This was her life, her happiness, her choice. Ethan, too, faced his own challenges. His daughter, a pragmatic and somewhat reserved woman, expressed concern about the speed of their relationship, the intensity of their connection. She worried about her father, about his vulnerability, about the potential for heartbreak. But Ethan, with a quiet firmness Amelia admired, assured her that he was making his own choices, that he was happier than he had been in years, that love, when it arrived, didn't always follow a sensible timeline. Despite the external pressures, their love deepened, becoming a force that shaped their days, their nights, their very beings. They spent hours talking, sharing stories, dreams, fears, building a foundation of intimacy that felt both ancient and brand new. They explored Charleston together, discovering hidden courtyards, secret gardens, quiet cafes that became their own. They cooked together, gardened together, simply existed together, their lives intertwining with a natural ease that felt like destiny. Amelia's garden, once a symbol of her solitude, now became a testament to their shared love. Ethan, with his marine biologist's understanding of ecosystems, brought a new perspective to her designs, suggesting native plants, sustainable practices, creating a vibrant, living space that reflected their combined passions. They worked side by side, their hands brushing as they planted, their laughter echoing through the fragrant air, building not just a garden, but a shared future, one bloom at a time. One evening, as they sat on Amelia's porch, the air thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the distant sound of church bells, Ethan turned to her, his blue eyes holding a depth of emotion that made her heart ache with a sweet, profound joy. He didn't need to speak. His gaze, his touch, the quiet intensity of his presence conveyed everything. He was asking her to fully commit, to shed the last vestiges of her promise, to embrace the future with him, without reservation. Amelia, looking at the man who had so unexpectedly, so beautifully, dismantled her carefully constructed walls, felt a surge of courage she hadn't known she possessed. The fear was still there, a faint whisper in the back of her mind, a ghost of the pain she had once known. But it was overshadowed by a far more powerful emotion, a love so intense, so consuming, so utterly breathtaking, that it dwarfed every fear, every doubt, every past promise. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his, and in that simple gesture, she made a new promise. A silent vow whispered not into the emptiness of her home, but into the vibrant, living presence of the man she loved. A promise to love again, fiercely, passionately, without reservation, to embrace the terrifying vulnerability of profound attachment, to choose joy over safety, presence over protection, and love over fear, for as long as destiny allowed. The vow to never love again was broken, not with regret, but with a profound sense of liberation, a joyous surrender to a love that felt like coming home. The breaking of Amelia's vow was not a quiet surrender, but a joyous, fierce embrace of a future she had once believed impossible. With the last vestiges of her self-imposed solitude shed, she moved into Ethan's historic home, the one next door, a seamless transition that felt less like moving and more like coming home. Her own house, the one she had shared with David, remained a cherished memory, a testament to a love that had shaped her, but Ethan's home became their shared sanctuary, a space where two lives, once separate, now intertwined with a natural grace. Combining their lives at 48 and 52 was a dance of compromise and discovery. They each brought decades of established habits, of preferred routines, of personal histories that had shaped them into the individuals they were. Ethan, with his quiet, methodical nature, found joy in Amelia's spontaneous bursts of creativity. Amelia, in turn, found a grounding presence in Ethan's calm strength, a steady anchor in the swirling currents of her own passionate spirit. Their days unfolded with a rhythm that was uniquely theirs, a blend of shared work in the garden, quiet evenings reading side by side, and long walks through Charleston's charming streets, their hands clasped, their steps in perfect synchronicity. The initial skepticism from David's family slowly softened, replaced by a grudging acceptance, then a genuine appreciation for the happiness Ethan brought into Amelia's life. Even David's sister, after witnessing Amelia's renewed vibrancy, her infectious laughter, her undeniable glow, offered a hesitant blessing, a quiet acknowledgement that true love, even a second love, was a gift to be cherished. Amelia understood that honoring David's memory wasn't about perpetual mourning, but about living fully, about embracing the joy he would have wanted for her. Ethan's daughter, initially reserved, found herself drawn to Amelia's warmth and passion, seeing in her a woman who brought a profound sense of peace and joy to her father. The blended families, once a source of anxiety, slowly began to weave together, creating a new tapestry of connection, a testament to the power of love to expand and embrace. Their love, once a hesitant spark, now burned with an intensity that was both exhilarating and deeply comforting. It was a passion that transcended the physical, though the physical intimacy remained a vibrant, essential part of their connection. Their bodies, marked by the passage of time, moved together with a profound understanding, a language of touch that spoke of years of longing, of rediscovered desire, of a love that saw past imperfections to the very soul. Amelia found herself marveling at the depth of her own capacity for passion, a fire she had thought extinguished, now blazing brighter than ever, fueled by Ethan's unwavering devotion and her own courageous surrender. They married in the spring, in their shared garden, beneath the ancient live oak that had once threatened Amelia's fence, now a symbol of resilience and new growth. It was a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by their closest friends and family, the air thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and the quiet hum of profound joy. Amelia wore a dress the color of seafoam, a nod to Ethan's love for the ocean, and her eyes, usually guarded, shone with a radiant happiness that captivated everyone present. Ethan, standing beside her, his silver hair catching the sunlight, his blue eyes filled with a love so deep it took her breath away, made vows that were simple yet profound. He promised to cherish her, to honor her past, to embrace their future, to love her fiercely and passionately for all the days of their lives. Amelia, in turn, promised to love him without reservation, to open her heart fully, to choose joy over fear, presence over protection, and to believe in the destiny that had brought them together. Their first dance, beneath the twinkling fairy lights strung through the oak branches, was to a timeless melody, their bodies swaying in perfect harmony, a silent testament to a love that had defied expectations, that had blossomed from the ashes of loss. Holding Ethan close, feeling the steady beat of his heart against hers, Amelia understood with absolute clarity that destiny had indeed had other plans. Her promise to never love again had been a shield against pain, but it had also been a barrier to the most profound joy she could ever imagine. She had said she'd never love again, but destiny, in its infinite wisdom, had known better. It had waited patiently, orchestrating a chance encounter in a historic city, bringing a quiet, strong man into her life who had, with gentle persistence and unwavering love, dismantled her carefully constructed walls. It had shown her that love wasn't a finite resource, that a heart broken could not only heal but could expand, capable of holding multiple loves, each unique, each profound. Their life together in Charleston became a testament to this truth. They continued to work in their garden, a vibrant, living metaphor for their love, constantly growing, constantly evolving. They explored the city, its history, its hidden gems, finding new beauty in familiar places. They traveled, fulfilling Ethan's lifelong dream of exploring remote coastlines, Amelia discovering a new passion for the ocean through his eyes. Every day was a gift, a precious moment to be cherished, for they both understood the fragility of life, the preciousness of time. Their love was not naive. It was seasoned by experience, tempered by loss, made stronger by the knowledge that true connection was a rare and beautiful thing. It was a love that was fiercely passionate, yet deeply comforting, a fire that burned brightly, yet offered a profound sense of peace. Amelia, once a woman defined by her grief and her promise, was now a woman defined by her joy, her passion, her unwavering love for Ethan. She had learned that destiny often works in mysterious ways, that sometimes the greatest gifts arrive when you least expect them, when you think all chances are behind you. She had learned that saying, "never again," was simply an invitation for destiny to prove you wrong, to show you a path to happiness you never dared to imagine. Lying in Ethan's arms at night, the sounds of Charleston drifting through their open window, Amelia often thought of David, not with pain, but with a gentle gratitude for the love they had shared, a love that had shaped her into the woman capable of loving Ethan so fiercely. And she thought of Ethan, her destiny, her unexpected joy, the man who had taught her that a heart, no matter how broken, could always find its way back to love, stronger, wiser, and more passionately alive than ever before. She had said she'd never love again, but destiny, with its gentle hand and its profound wisdom, had indeed had other plans. And those plans, she realized, were more beautiful, more intense, and more utterly breathtaking than any she could have ever dreamed for herself. Did Amelia and Ethan's journey touch your heart? This beautiful story reminds us that even after the deepest loss, and even after we've sworn off love forever, destiny often has a more profound, more passionate path in store for us. It teaches us that a heart broken can not only heal, but can love again, with an intensity that defies all promises and fears. Amelia's story is a testament to the courage it takes to be vulnerable, to choose joy over safety, and to believe that the most intense love of our lives might still be waiting, even when we think all chances are behind us. If this story stirred hope in you, a belief that it's never too late to feel everything, to want everything, to embrace a future you never dared to imagine, please leave a like and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories about love that defies expectations and proves that the best chapters of our lives might still be unwritten. Thank you for being part of this community.